Hi there, Michael here. In last week's video about the Sony MDR MV1 headphones, I teased that I would talk about this little guy this week. This is the QDelix 5K dongle duck. Its standout feature is that it has an integrated digital signal processor or DSP with access to a large database of headphone calibrations. And that built-in calibration makes my Sony MDR MV1 headphones sound like absolute magic. But actually, this video is not as much about the QDelix 5K as it is about the QDelix T7-1, which is its bigger brother. And that is a truly unique device because it is the only dongle duck that I know of that can deliver multi-channel surround sound up to 7.1. But then again, this video isn't that much about the QDelix T7-1 duck either, as it is about the QDelix T7-1 IEMs. And these are even more unique because when paired with the T7-1 duck, these IEMs utilize their 4-driver setup to deliver spatialized audio not through a binaural rendering, but instead natively by utilizing the location and sonic characteristics of the drivers inside of the IEM. I've never seen that done anywhere else, and I felt that you guys might enjoy my opinion about how well this works. So let's jump in and find out. Before I get started, a very quick clarification. This is not a sponsored video in any meaning of the word. I purchased all the devices I'm going to talk about myself with my own money. I am genuinely excited about these devices. And with that being said, let's first talk about the QDelix 5K dongle duck, which has been a popular choice for audiophiles for a while. Now, at the time I'm recording this, the device was sold out in the QDelix store, but you could still get it on Amazon. In case you're interested, I'm going to leave an affiliate link in the description below. The QDelix 5K is a portable Bluetooth digital to analog converter and amplifier designed for audiophiles seeking high-quality audio on the go. It utilizes the Qualcomm QCC5124 chipset, enabling Bluetooth 5.0 support and various high-resolution audio codecs, including LDAC, aptX, Adaptive, and AAC. The QDelix 5K offers both 2.5mm balanced and 3.5mm unbalanced outputs and can drive a very wide range of headphones very comfortably. It features dual ES9219 Sabre duck chips supporting 24-bit and 96 kHz audio decoding. And most importantly, the device also includes a built-in 64-bit double precision parametric equalizer, allowing users to customize their audio experience through the QDelix app, which is available on both Android as well as iOS. Any EQ settings are stored on device, so this is a set and forget customization. This app also has access to a database of frequency responses for a very large number of headphones, and that allows you to calibrate any frequency response issues. When combined with the Sony MDR MV1, for example, this results in an absolutely outstanding sound experience. But enough talk, let's check out the app and see how it works. I've connected the QDelix 5K to my iPhone via Bluetooth, and what I'm going to do today is I'm going to use the new iPhone mirroring application in order to demonstrate what's going on my iPhone. So while this looks like I'm working on a Mac, I'm actually working on my iPhone through this mirroring application. So let's open up the QDelix app on my iPhone. And the first thing that you are greeted with is a rather confusing user interface. And a lot of people have pointed out that it is a little bit difficult to find your way. But to be perfectly honest, once you understand where everything is, things are actually relatively straightforward. You have a couple of things that you can check for the device. You can check the battery status. You can check the power settings, how it is connected to the power. You have different miscellaneous things that you can kind of enable or disable. And then you also have an about section here. And on the bottom, you have a couple of things that you can do with it. You can check out the input settings, how it is currently connected from the input perspective. You can change the volume here as well. And then you have some settings for the amplifier. And finally, most importantly, the settings for the DSP or the digital signal processor. Now here you can set your EQ settings, and you can do that in two ways. You can do that for the output signal as the user EQ, and you can also do that for each individual earbud here in the speaker EQ settings. And so what you can do, for example, is you can customize that to your hearing preferences, but most importantly, you can apply a preset that corresponds to the frequency response curve of a particular headphone. So what I've done here is I have applied the speaker correction for the Sony MDR MV1 headphones. And what will happen here is everything that I play through this dongle duck will be corrected, and I'm going to hear everything perfectly fine on my Sony MDR MV1. And this actually works really, really well. Now, if you don't have the Sony MDR MV1 headphones, don't worry. There are quite a few presets that you can choose from. And you can pretty much, if you have a headphone, it's probably in there. And what you would essentially do is you would select that headphone, it would apply the correction, and you're ready to go. And it works out of the box with no additional settings that you need to make. So whenever you start the device, whenever you connect the device to anything, it will simply apply these settings and correct your frequency response. So I think this is one of the reasons why audiophiles like this little dongle duck so much, because it is first of all really, really small and then very flexible. You can do all kinds of EQ corrections and you can customize that to your headphones, and it just works out of the box. It's really, really cool. Now let's talk about the QDelix 5K's bigger brother, the QDelix T7-1. This is a noticeable larger duck, although not huge, and it has an added LED screen. In a nutshell, the QDelix T7-1 is a high-performance USB digital-to-analog converter designed to process multi-channel audio from various source devices. The standard feature is that unlike conventional ducks that can only handle 2-channel stereo audio, the T7-1 can receive and output up to 8 channels of digital audio. Now at this point I need to mention that the main downside of this duck is that in contrast to the QDelix 5K, it does not have Bluetooth, so you need to have the duck connected to your audio source via USB cable. Now, as said before, the duck supports 7.1 surround sound processing and downmixing to stereo output for headphones. It has not 2 but 4 ES9219 Sabre HiFi ducks, and it features the same on-device digital signal processing capabilities as the QDelix 5K, albeit at a larger sound quality, meaning that you can load EQ settings into the device, just like with the QDelix 5K. The QDelix T7-1 has 2 balanced outputs, one 2.5mm as well as one 4.4mm, and an unbalanced 3.5mm output as well. These outputs deliver twice as much power as those of the QDelix 5K, so you should be able to drive pretty much any headphone comfortably. Most noticeably, however, the duck has an additional USB output, and this USB output is not your standard USB. What QDelix have done here is that they have utilized the USB-C interface to output a multi-channel audio signal that can address a 7.1 speaker system in a standard 7.1 surround sound configuration. Now, unfortunately, they do not provide an adapter cable, so if you want to actually drive 8 speakers with this duck, you need to solder one yourself. They do have the schematic in the manual, so this shouldn't be all that difficult to do, but be aware that if you want to use this duck as a portable multi-channel dongle duck, you got yourself a little bit of a do-it-yourself project. But this is where the final QDelix product I want to talk about comes in, and this is the QDelix T7-1 IEM. Now, the QDelix T7-1 IEMs are in-ear monitors that are capable of natively reproducing 5.1 or 7.1 surround sound for immersive experiences in gaming, movies, and music. The way they do this is by utilizing their 4-driver setup to position the sound sources inside of your ear. There are 8 drivers in total that can drive a 7.1 surround sound setup, but that means, and I cannot stress this enough, that these IEMs only work with the QDelix T7-1 duck. They use a special 10-wire USB-C cable, 5 wires for each earbud, to handle the 8-channel audio signal. So just to make that super clear, if you do not have the QDelix T7-1 duck, do not, I repeat, do not go out and buy these IEMs, as they will not work with anything else. This looks like a USB-C cable, but it actually isn't. It's just a custom cable with a USB-C connector to connect it with the T7-1 duck. With that out of the way, let's briefly talk about the build quality and comfort. The T7-1 IEMs have a semi-custom molded shape that I find extremely comfortable to wear. They look actually quite nice and also come with a really nice case. The cable is okay-ish, not the best in the world, but I have no complaints. Unfortunately, you can't switch that out because, once again, it is a custom cable. Okay, but what about sound quality, and does the 7.1 immersive setup actually work? Before I answer that, let's first open up the QDelix T71 app and check out the customization features because they're actually quite nice. Now, in contrast to the QDelix 5K, the QDelix T71 does not work with the iOS version of the application. What you need to do instead is you need to use the web-based version of the control application. And the way to do that is simply by downloading a browser extension and then running this browser extension. So I have that here in my Brave browser. And what I simply do is I start that extension, and then I have pretty much the same interface that I had in my iOS application just now in my browser. We have the same features here, same settings. We can look at the battery, we can look at miscellaneous, we can also look at the about section, and we also have an input section where we can check out all the inputs that we have. Currently, there's no audio running through the DAC. We can change the volume, and because this is an 8-channel device, we can actually change the volume for all 8 individual channels. We have settings for the amplifier. And then finally, we have the DSP, and this one is, in this particular case, really super interesting because now we have an EQ not only for one signal or for a stereo signal, we actually have an EQ for 8 channels, respectively for 8 drivers. Now, when I first played audio through the IEMs, to me, they sounded a little bit too bass heavy. They were really, really good, kind of across the frequency spectrum. Just the bass was a little too heavy for my personal taste. So the first thing that I would recommend is just go into the Auto EQ preset settings. And here you have 3 different presets that you can choose from. Flat would be the preset that is essentially standard. And what I personally liked is the AME1 settings, and those kind of take down the bass a little. And to me, that just sounded a little bit more neutral. So just play around with those and choose whatever you find more appropriate. However, you can also go into the speaker EQ settings, and you can change actually the EQ settings for each driver in these earbuds individually. So you have 8 drivers, 4 on each side, and you can create EQ settings for each of those 8 drivers. And the way you do that is you go here into these speaker EQ settings here, and you first select which of the drivers you want to change. And then you can select, you want to make the changes either to both drivers simultaneously, or you only want to make these changes to the left earbud or to the right earbud. So if you want to, for example, change the settings for the first balanced amateur driver in the left speaker, I can do that. I select it here. I can change one of the EQ settings. So let's, for example, do a peak at 250 Hertz, just for demonstration purposes. Let's just add 4 decibel here. And then you essentially see that I have an additional kind of little peak at the balanced amateur driver number 1 on the left speaker, and that does not exist on the right speaker. So what you can do, and that I think is really, really unique, and I'm really wondering why nobody is talking about that. You have the option to EQ each of the 8 drivers individually. And that means that you have an awful amount of customization options. You can also not only use peak settings for this EQ, you can also do all kinds of things. You can do a low pass filter, high pass filter, a shelf, a low shelf, a high shelf, and so forth. And you can also change the gain. You can even mute individual drivers if you want to. And that to me is actually one of the most interesting features of those IEMs, that you have really ultimate customizability. You can do almost anything with them. And that is really, really cool. So how about the immersive experience? Do you really hear the 7.1 surround sound in 3D? Well, yes and no. And I think that is a result of the inherent properties of IEMs. What seems to work really well is the localization of sound behind you. Now, I could not really make out much difference between the location of the side surround speakers and the rear surround speakers, but they were clearly located on the side and behind me. However, similarly to other IEMs, the impression you get from left, right, and center speakers is very intimate, almost inside of your head. And because you hear the surround speakers behind the front speakers or behind you, the feeling that you get, at least the feeling that I got, is that everything is happening behind you. You hear a 3D sound image, but you, the listener, are positioned way too much in the front. To me, it felt as if I was inside of the center speakers and the entire immersive experience was happening behind me. Now, there is a chance that you could get used to that, and in that case, the immersive feature could be very useful. It is only 7.1 with no height speakers, but depending on your use case, that might actually be sufficient. However, and this is a very big however, and I'm actually a little bit surprised that this is not talked about more. I think that the T7-1 system really shines in one non-immersive way. And that is that it is the only IEM in existence, at least to my knowledge, where you can individually EQ each of the drivers in each of the earbuds. Over the last couple of years, there has been a lot of talk about custom IEMs where IEM reviewers collaborate with manufacturers to fine-tune the sonic properties of IEMs. The T7-1 IEM allows you to do that yourself. So if you ever wanted to play around with customizing each driver in an IEM individually, you can do that here. And this should be a very interesting option for many people, even if they have no interest in the T7-1's surround sound capabilities. So in conclusion, the T7-1 DAC in combination with the T7-1 IEM is an absolutely outstanding combination with some limitations in its intended use case for surround sound. Probably not the best for that purpose, but it's really, really good in customizing your sound preferences. I only wish it would be a Bluetooth DAC. If it had Bluetooth, I would be in heaven, to be perfectly honest. But unfortunately, you need to have it connected via USB-C. Now, Qtelix does sell a little nice magnetic case that you can snap onto your iPhone like that. And that makes this kind of a little piggyback solution for your dongle DAC, which works actually quite well. Nevertheless, I would certainly have preferred Bluetooth connectivity. But this is everything I wanted to say today. If you have any questions or comments, please leave them in the comment section below or join our free Discord community. An invite link is in the description as well. If you have enjoyed this video, YouTube thinks you will enjoy this one here as well. So give it a watch. And with that being said, I'll see you all in the next video.